Hey, welcome back. In the last lesson, we talked about how your lifestyle and location will affect your van choice. We also gave you some questions to start thinking about. In this lesson, we'll talk about some of the most common types of vans out there and the pros and cons of each. In recent years, panel-type vans have taken off as the van of choice among van lifers. These include the Mercedes Sprinter, the Ford Transit, and the Dodge Promaster. These have gained popularity for a few reasons. First, in the tall roof models like this one, you can stand up inside, unless of course you're taller than like 6'5", and then you might have trouble no matter what. Second, they're fully customizable. You can literally buy an empty shell and then the van is your oyster. And finally, depending on what the outside looks like, these vans can pass as work vans, allowing you to go stealth very easily in the city. Now let's talk about some of the major differences, starting with the Sprinter. As you know, I have a Sprinter van and I'm currently on my second one. My number one reason for choosing a Sprinter over the other vehicle types is it's currently the only one with a factory 4x4 option. We spend a lot of time in the snow and on rough dirt roads, so this was a non-negotiable for me. With the 2017 Sprinter, the 4x4 also gives you an extra 4 inches of clearance, and there's even more clearance with the 2019 model. Compared to the other panel vans, the Sprinter has a higher payload than the Transit or the Promaster, which means it can handle more weight in the interior of the van. Sprinters are expensive to begin with, but the 4x4 upgrade comes with an even heftier price tag, as well as a couple of downsides. First, the 4-wheel drive Sprinter is significantly less gas efficient than the 2-wheel drive version. I get about 13 to 15 miles per gallon in this Sprinter, while many 2-wheel drive V4 Sprinters are reported to get 20 miles a gallon or more. Further, the stock Sprinter suspension is not really made for off-roading, so if that's something you want to do a lot of, you may also want to consider factoring in the price of a suspension upgrade. I'll get more into that in Module 3, but basically what it comes down to is how much snow and rough roads you plan to tackle in your van. If snow is a rare occasion and you generally stick to smooth gravel roads, then the 2-wheel drive Sprinter will probably be adequate. With that said, I have been impressed with the performance of my 4-wheel drive Sprinter and would choose to get another 4x4 upgrade if I was going to get another Sprinter. For some other opinions, I'll share some other resources down below this video in the notes that you can explore. The final thing to keep in mind with the 4x4 is the time it takes to get one. Mercedes only produces a certain number of 4x4s every year, and demand far outweighs the supply. This means you might have to wait 6 or even 9 months to get your hands on one once you place your order. On the flip side, these used 4x4 Sprinters do hold their value when it comes to resale. Now let's talk about size. The Sprinter comes in 2 main lengths. My first Sprinter was the 144-inch wheelbase, which is the short one, and my current Sprinter is the 170-inch wheelbase, which gives you about 3.5 extra feet of living space. There's also the 170-inch extended version, but that length you don't see very much. On my blog, you can find a detailed blog post comparing and contrasting my experience with the 2 different lengths. You can find a direct link in the resources below to that blog post. But just to give you a quick summary, for full-time living, I've been very happy with the 170-inch wheelbase. The extra storage and the extra living space has far made up for the minor inconvenience of having a larger vehicle. The 2 wheelbases are very similar in the way they drive. They're both highly maneuverable. You just have to be a little bit more careful with a 170-inch wheelbase on tight turns and steep terrain. With that said, we have rallied this 170-inch Sprinter all over the mountains of Colorado this summer, and I will say that good driving skills with this length do go a long way. We also choose to avoid busy cities with crowded streets, as the stress simply isn't worth it. So if you do plan to do a lot of city driving and you're only 1 to 2 people, or you're only doing van life part-time, then the 144-inch might be the way to go. I'm frequently asked if I've encountered problems with my Sprinter, and I have had a few minor things here and there, but nothing super major. My first Sprinter, the depth sensor had to be replaced. Fortunately, it was under warranty. And for anyone purchasing a Sprinter, I highly recommend the extended warranty. It is expensive, but so is the maintenance in these vehicles. Because the computer on these Sprinters is so complicated, most regular mechanics won't really touch them, leaving the dealer as your only option when you have an issue. Now let's talk about the Ford Transit. For the first time in 2020, the Ford Transit is coming out with an all-wheel drive version. Now this isn't as capable as a traditional 4-wheel drive, but it is a step up from the regular 2-wheel drive Ford Transit, which is currently a rear wheel drive. The Ford is less expensive than the Sprinter, but as of 2020, the all-wheel drive Ford Transit only comes in a gas model. Now, the downside of a gas model is gas engines simply don't last as long as diesel. The only situation where I see a gas engine being an advantage is if you plan to drive to Central or South America in your van. Newer diesel engines from the US require ultra-low sulfur diesel, which is not widely available in Central and South America. So if you're driving the Pan American Highway and that's something you really know you want to do in your van, then you should probably look at a gas engine or maybe an older used van as your best bet. The other thing to point out on the new Transit all-wheel drive is, unlike the Sprinter, where the four-wheel drive version gets you added clearance, the Ford all-wheel drive has no more clearance than the two-wheel drive version. For gas efficiency, the reported gas mileage of the gas Ford Transit is between 14 and 18 miles a gallon and 20 miles a gallon for diesel, which is more than the four-wheel drive Sprinter and less than the two-wheel drive Sprinter. The biggest advantage of the Ford Transit over the Sprinter are the lower cost of maintenance and the fact that you can really have it serviced everywhere. Parts are easy to come by, and if you break down in a small rural town, your chances of having it easily fixed without having it cost a fortune are much greater than with a Sprinter. The Ford Transit also has the highest interior height option for those of you who are over 6 feet tall. If you are set on the Ford Transit but want a more robust four-wheel drive system, you can always do an aftermarket four-wheel drive conversion. As of now, Quigley is the leader in this space, and in 2019, their 4x4 conversion on a two-wheel drive Transit costs about $13,000, which with the cost of the Transit van is still cheaper than a 4x4 Sprinter. This is an option I would consider next time around. Now on to the Dodge Promaster, which is another popular option. The Dodge Promaster is the most economical of the panel style vans, so it's a great option for those of you who are on a tight budget. The Promaster's efficient eco-diesel model gets about 20 miles to the gallon, which is another perk for those of you who are on a budget. The Promaster is also more DIY friendly due to its boxy nature and the straight lines inside the van, which make for an easier conversion. As far as size, the longest model is 3 feet shorter than the 170-inch Sprinter, so the Promaster will require you to pack more thoughtfully. Ground clearance on the Promaster is about 1 inch less than the two-wheel drive Transit and Sprinter, so off-roading capability with the Promaster is a lot more limited. Panel-style vans aren't the only option for van life, though. In fact, they're relatively new to the scene, so I will also want to share a few other vehicle options that you might consider. The first is the Ford E-Series van, also known as the Econline. If you're familiar with Sportsmobile, this is the vehicle platform they traditionally used before they started converting Sprinters. The E-Series is budget-friendly with a huge used market. Some have even been converted to four-wheel drive, and these are extremely off-road capable vehicles. The downside of the Ford E-Series is that they're gas guzzlers, and you cannot stand up inside unless you've installed a pop top. Next is the VW Vanagon Westfalia. These vintage-style vans offer tried and tested layouts, many with a pop top, built-in bed, and a built-in kitchen. If you choose this style of van, you better be a problem solver, though, because they require serious mechanical skills. Parts are hard to come by, and with the age of the vehicle, you are bound to run into issues. These vans also tend to be expensive despite being 20, 30, or 40 years old. While we've covered the most common vehicle types that are used for camper van conversions, you're really only limited by your creativity. You can create your own version of van life utilizing any type of vehicle that is big enough to sleep in. Minivans, trucks, Suburbans, ambulances, hatchbacks, the list really does go on. The key is to stay within your budget and make sure you have a vehicle that you will be able to maintain.